Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Treadstone. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, picking up with the whole Tara situation. I love that whole conversation about okay, so how long has Tara been, a cicada, part of Treadstone and all that. It's like, oh, she's been under all of this, for a long time. I was like, man, because especially because we got those flashes in Tara's head, and it turns out it's so interesting because apparently this whole journalist cover came up when Treadstone got shut down because she was literally in the middle of killing. Her assignment was Yuri, so it's interesting and in the long run and even they kind of make a point of it's almost coming full circle because she has to it's almost poetic that she's the one that ends up having to put him down, especially because Yuri had her friend Megan killed too, so that's even more incentive for her. But it also makes so much sense why she was so dead set on this Stiletto 6 thing. She was why it was so important to her, why she strives so hard to go after this. It's because subconsciously she was fulfilling this role of this was my assignment, and it kind of seeped into her cover. I wonder, was that necessarily on purpose, giving her the journalist that I don't know whether they meant to do that like that, because I feel like typically they're going to give you a cover that's further away, but maybe it was that journalist cover was necessary at the time to kind of cover bases of why she probably moved around a lot. Maybe it kind of be less suspicious of her being a journalist. I just thought that was interesting because obviously Doug doesn't have a job necessarily associated, or So Young, neither one of them have a job or position that would warrant them being what they are, so I just thought that was kind of a fascinating aspect to that, so obviously seeing her kind of locked and loaded, especially because Petra hooks her up with weapons and stuff like that, because it's also interesting too, because for Petra it's probably Tara's probably the first. Well, obviously she said cicada because obviously this is what this all stems from, but obviously Treadstone is a little bit different, but obviously it's still kind of, it stems from the same process, but it's still got to be interesting because she probably hasn't seen a cicada in years. I mean, granted, we don't know. There's still a lot of her story we don't know about, so who knows what happened in between, but obviously you'd assume for the past 20 plus years, she was just looking after Stiletto 6, so obviously she's been kind of cut off from this world, but it's got to be interesting because you're the one who helped create this process, you and Meisner. So it's got to be interesting to see after all these years, it's kind of come back to you holy crap, you're a cicada. But nevertheless, because obviously she has motives for wanting Yuri dead too. So there's that. And it's also pretty badass seeing Tara kind of get locked and loaded and, going through Yuri's men like that, shotgun over the shoulder, and just, I don't know. It's pretty, like I said, because it's I had my suspicions at the beginning. I was oh man, I had a feeling Tara was, but I was oh no, I guess not. I guess I was just under her. It's nope, she was totally a cicada, once again, Treadstone the entire time. But it is that interesting thing of being self-aware enough, your training kicks in, all the memories kick in, but it's kind of a flawed reboot of your mind and stuff. It's not it's you're kind of trapped between who she was as Tara, the journalist, versus who she is as Tara, the asset. So it's kind of that much like Doug's situation, much like So Young's situation. It's not a perfect mechanism. That the fact of the matter is, it seems like there are cases where it is perfect, but I don't know whether it's just because their systems are flawed for whatever reason, because it seems like other assets are just got 100% in it, and I'm curious, is that just because either they lean into it and accept it, or maybe they've been so brainwashed that theirs is 100% in while everyone else's needs a little bit of a retooling. I don't know. I'm curious to kind of see where that kind of goes, but it was pretty impressive. I was almost halfway expecting Yuri to kind of die in this, and lo and behold, he ended up escaping, especially because Tara got off a few shots before she got hit by the car. I was I guess not. I guess Yuri's super alive, so that was interesting. So while that's going down, it's okay, so they send in a team to get the Stiletto 6 warhead. So it's okay, that's taken care of. But at the same time, it's oh, that's fine and dandy, but what we need to do is we need to take care of Matt. He's about to expose his whole thing, which obviously Ellen has an issue with, because it's no, Matt's my friend. It's yeah, but he's going to compromise everything that we've done. So Edwards has to be taken care of. I did not see that Steven situation coming. I saw the thing at the beginning, but it didn't click in my head of oh, that was them reprogramming him. I took that as oh man, that's them I was showing you okay, the process or something like that. I don't know what, I didn't correlate. I was oh, I guess this is showing you how they did it, people. I was it didn't correlate in my brain oh, they kept Steven alive. It's well, why let such a good asset, let such a good killer go to waste? So it's and making it the messed up thing of sending Steven after Matt, just because it's like after all that Matt did trying to help him, and lo and behold, Steven's kind of being sent to wanting to kill him and everything. It's like that sucks, especially because Steven tries to reach out. I mean, because Matt tries to reach out to Steven, it's like, come on, snap out of it. But it's like, nope. And especially it has to be pretty brutal because it's like, oh, yeah, let's listen in on a microphone on the phone. And you're literally listening to him drowning. And that's got to be sucky for Ellen. She's like, oh, my God. It's like, I'm hearing my friend get killed. It's like, especially because, like, at the beginning, she had her disagreements with Matt, but now she realizes in the grand scheme of things, like, oh, Matt was kind of right to do things that he did. Like, I'm kind of trapped in this position of, like, being a part of, something that's wrong here. And obviously, it's like, but for a moment, he was able to reach Jacob. Stephen Buck saying Jacob, and it makes him remember who he was. And in that instant, he takes a pull. I was like, what? And lo and behold, look who it is. It's Tara. I was like, Tara? Because even in the back of my mind, I was like, how the hell she know to come here? Because last time we saw she was after Yuri. But she was like, shh, and kind of pointing to the phone. I was like, it didn't click in my... I'm skipping all around here, but Ellen gave her the heads up. It should have been obvious to me. I mean, once again, give Ellen her because I guess Ellen wasn't 100% sure. She was probably hopeful that Tara got there in time. But now in the grand, because it's like, how would Tara know that the phone was listening and stuff like that too? So it's like, holy crap, I thought that was so. I was just like, dude. But you also feel bad. But for Steven, for him, he was willing to die if it meant taking down his program. So in the end, I think that's what that comes down to. But it's still kind of a bummer. It's just I mean, because for him, he was like, there was no going back to his old life. That's why he never went to see his daughter, because I'd rather her remembering who I was. But for him to be like, because his programming was flawed, they reprogrammed him to like, oh, to be the perfect asset where like, his mind wouldn't be fractured like it is, and he just give in to the programming because they made him even more of a soldier/killer. So it's like, it's just a shame to see that his story plays out like that, but it leaves Matt alive and Tara together so that they can make this, figure out what's going on. Because even Matt's like, we got to shut down this program, which obviously Tara's like, no, I signed up for Treadstone willingly. Why would we do that? But it's like, it's corrupted. Like, this whole system isn't meant to be what it might have started off as. Is like, this is like trying to make the world a better place type of situation. It's like, no, we're lining someone else's pocket. People are connected to this whole Treadstone thing, and they're taking advantage of it, basically getting themselves like professional killers. They're using a government program to better themselves and put themselves in very powerful positions. That's what this all stems from. So it's like, I mean, to be fair, the program was kind of effed up to begin with, but the fact of the matter is even more effed up because it's like, it's not even for the original purpose, which obviously, once again, the original purpose wasn't that great to begin with. But it's like, once again, like Tara and people like Steven who signed up because they thought they were doing something for their country. It's like, I'm a soldier. The fact is, I want to do something good. I want to make the world a better place in my own way, but it's like, you're just being used to make life better for other people, So, that's kind of like the grand scheme of things, so... And even that whole situation, I don't know. It is kind of nice that basically Ellen did kind of shift at the end, because even Matt's like, thank you, because it's like, she didn't align with all of this. It's just kind of like, once again, she kind of got dragged into this because Dan kind of put her in a position where it's like, yeah, you're kind of screwed, because if I go down and we go down, you go down with us type of situation. But it's like, no, I control you. It's like, blah, 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 blah. Because even Ellen was pissed, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, you're trying to make it seem like, oh, this was for the greater good. It's like, shut up. This is about protecting your own ass. Like, that's all you care about. Like, you're neck deep in all of this. This isn't for like, oh, we're trying to commit some greater good. The fact that, and it's kind of like, whoa, you want to ask you're asking too many questions, Ellen. You might want to, watch your back. And she's like, no, you killed my friend, so you better watch your back. So that's definitely kind of an interesting lane of, for things to kind of go down. Obviously, we had the whole situation in the past where it's like you had the whole Matheson and John situation where John was like, I don't know about this whole thing. Because he was like, Meisner wanted us to kill him because I guess killing him would be like the final like nail in a coffin. It kind of, it's like, oh, facility, like maybe it's some like subconscious trigger of like, okay, once we go back to the CIA, because even John was like, I don't know if we should go back. What if this is all part of the plan? Which Matheson is like, no, you're kind of letting him get in your head. But it's like, but that's the thing. What if he is still in our head? Like, we thinking we're going back trying to do good when we actually aren't, so then there's the whole Petra thing. Petra doing her thing to try and escape, but not being able to get away. The moment they were like there, I was like, oh, that's got to be the CIA. And especially because we know that I guess Petra at some point ended up teaching them the process that eventually become, the cicada process, which eventually became Treadstone. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And sadly, it's that complicated thing of like, Petra is being told that, John betrayed her, which it's like, I guess he did. I guess there was that tracker and everything. So I guess listening to Matheson, especially because it's like, did you ever think about what you're going to do to that redhead, like, once you got on? He's like, no. And especially because after John met that, that British agent to being like, oh, no, he's waiting for her to come back. And obviously it leaves John feeling conflicted because it's like, he does have feelings for her, but at the same time, it's like, I felt like I was the only one. You made me feel like there was something between us, but it seems like it was just a means to an end to you, because how many other like cicadas did you do that to? You got close to them and you manipulated them as part of like making them yours, so. But then we see her kind of locked up. She kind of gets pissed at John for the betrayal, but she leaves him a note being like, remember, like, that little getaway for them. And I'm like, that's so interesting, because in the grand scheme of things, because what you have to remember too, it's like, well, Petra went back to Russia. So it's like at some point she either escaped the CIA or the fact, because it makes you wonder, like, what was that all about? Because it's like, once again, that's why I'm talking about the fact is there's so much of her story that hasn't been tapped yet, because it's like, there's so much left open, because it's like, how do you go from being captured to the CIA to being released and working back with being with Russia again, with the KGB and looking after Stiletto 6 and everything? That's why it's like, there's a lot of, holes that kind of have to be filled in, especially with the whole John situation, because it's like, okay, you're coming back to the CIA, but obviously the CIA is trying to make Treadstone. You would think that John would be super against Treadstone existing, but maybe it's like, it's for the, maybe it was kind of, maybe him and Petra are trying to destroy it from the inside. Because that's what I'm wondering, because I feel like Petra, knowing as much as she does, you would think the U.S. government, in particular the CIA, would have killed her the moment they got what they needed, and that was the old, like, learning, like, it's like, okay, the last thing we need is anyone else knowing this process, so kill Petra. Like, you would think that was the case, but obviously, because that's what I'm wondering, because it seems like everyone else, I guess, even though it's still the Cicada program, like, she's the only one last tied to the Cicada program. So every other quote unquote Cicada is actually someone from Treadstone applying. Like, I guess it got out, because obviously it seemed like it was just a U.S. government thing, but now it seems like other people, because obviously we see that North Korea is involved because of the whole Colonel Shin situation. Now, even Kwan was obviously, part of that too. So, and obviously, so it makes you think, like, did the Cicada program go from Russia? But once again, it's like Petra's the only one that knew about it, so it had to be like a U.S. government thing of setting that in motion. Bringing up the whole North Korean angle, Soo-yeon goes back home and it's like, oh, her son got taken from her, because it's like, oh yeah, your son, it's like, oh, you haven't been the same, and I've confided in Colonel Shin. I'm like, oh, day, you idiot, because I'm sure she hasn't really I want her to be able to take the time to be like, Day, you don't realize it. Colonel Shin is trying to raise a coup. Like, you're so like, oh, no, you're steadfast in the government, and obviously you think Colonel Shin's your friend. It's like, no, he's manipulating you. He literally made me into a monster, especially because her mom is like, oh, like, your son's going to be a part of the program that I put you in. It's like, no mother wants to lose their child or whatever, but it's like, now she realizes that her son is going to be put into the same program that made her into what she is. Eventually, they're going to train him up to be a soldier, and then they're going to put him in a Cicada program. And it's like, no. She's not about to let that happen to her son. So for her, it's like, this is who I am. I'm the one that's going to fix it. I'm going to make this all right. At the end of the day, you don't know who I am, but this is who I am. Trying, because that's all she's ever tried to do. Especially because there's that whole thing with Dan being like, no, you kill Colonel Shin, we'll look after your family, which obviously that doesn't matter because Dan is killed at the end. That particular Cicada, which basically, because we see that Yuri contacts Ray, because even Ray was like, yeah, this whole thing wasn't my plan, like the fact that, because obviously for Dan was doing this because Yuri needed to die, because Yuri was doing the whole Stiletto 6 thing, so that's why Dan was like, oh, he needs to die. But obviously he didn't run that up the food chain, which I guess that still shows that there is a disconnect between what's really going on with Senator Ray and Dan, because I guess Dan wasn't in the full loop with everything. But maybe it's a thing of like, I think the whole point, or I don't know, it's hard to say, because I was about to say not unless Ray was kind of like, go ahead and do it. Yuri's kind of served his purposes, but then he's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, my friend, don't worry, this will be handled. So Dan ends up getting killed. I love that, because he was like, we should have had an eye on Russia. which kind of makes me lean back to my point now. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, so that must mean that Russia still did continue the Cicada program. Maybe it isn't just necessarily Treadstone. So kind of implying that maybe she was a part, so it's like we should have had our eye on Russia. Or maybe that's supposed to be the fact is that, Russia is actually, obviously whatever Ray is up to, like obviously Yuri is a big part of that. Like Ray and him are associates in this whole situation, obviously. But I'm wondering, was Ray trying to cut him out, or was that like Dan undermining Ray's authority or something like that? Whatever the case may be, Dan kind of gets put down. It's kind of, well, it's almost poetic considering the whole, Jacob situation, Stephen, but Jacob situation. So it's like it kind of makes sense in the long run. So there's that. It seems like Ellen is being brought into the fold because even she's like, where's Levine? And it's like, well, I guess she's kind of replacing Dan because obviously we see Ray and there's like a room full of people. So it's like, okay, so this is like this Treadstone cabal. At least some of them. I mean, there's 2 empty seats, so I'm assuming one of them belongs to Yuri and the other one belonged to Dan, but now she's kind of filling that role. And obviously she's not with this whole thing, so I guess she's going to be working from the inside, but it's like if she's not careful, obviously they're not above killing people, so I'm assuming that's what, especially because Ray is like, oh, we're bringing you in because because obviously they never found out that, because she was worried, she's like, oh, they must have found out that I contacted Tara, but it's like, no, they don't. So she's still good in the sense that like, well, Dan had to be taken care of because he was, getting a little too big for his britches. He kind of stepped down the line, but you, Ellen, we know we can trust you type of thing. So there's that as well. So, and then I'm skipping over it, but there's the whole Doug situation. Because obviously Doug's, in that very complicated situation. Obviously he's supposed to kill his target, but obviously he doesn't want to. And obviously Sam is telling him, it's like, you're running out of time. She's playing that good, being like, I haven't seen Doug. He killed home dude that came to see him. It's like, wait, my husband's dead? No, I know you're lying to me. It's like, wow, you're playing this up good. They don't even suspect you. And even the question becomes like, okay, Vincent, it's like, okay, so obviously Sam is coming up there being like, okay, there's a lot of questions like that you should be asking, but you're not. But Anna is like, oh, the fact is the world's getting smaller, resources and stuff like that. Once again, force feeding this BS of kind of like, oh, we're doing this for the greater good of like, oh, like we're trying to create, once again, a better place, that like all this is being for a reason. It's not just like, oh, we're not for selfish reasons, I'm actually doing this for the greater good, almost like on a global scale or something like that. But it's like, once again, it seems like people are positioning themselves to benefit from this because it's like everything that went down in the Arctic, everything that's kind of going down, she said, in South America, it's meant to hit these pivotal areas that kind of could be, about resources and shifting everything going, so obviously Sam's kind of being undercover in this whole situation as well. Obviously, Doug was going to kill the dude, but then he sees the dude get attacked and actually defends him, but sets it up to be like, yep, I killed the dude, but now they're thinking like, okay, so they still think Doug is dead, that Vince is doing this thing. And now it leaves Doug in this complicated thing because he's even telling the dude, it's like, if I don't kill you, my wife is going to be in danger. But if I do kill you, she'll be safe. But the fact of the matter is, that isn't the man I want to be. That's not the man my wife married. So he's in that compromised position of kind of, what do I do? It's like, and the guy was basically like, I'm envious of kind of like this dreamland that you're kind of a part of. But for Doug, it's like, I want to wake up, So it's like the dude's like, I still need to do my speech. But it's like, if he goes and does his speech, that puts Sam in danger. So I guess Doug is going to be like, all right, at least give me some time. You can do your speech and everything, but give me time to get back to Sam, get her out of all of this, or see whatever she can uncover about all this. Because like, this is being attacked in so many different angles. Obviously, the whole Colonel Shin doing his thing, in North Korea, trying to, do his coup. Like, Soo-yeon's kind of handling that. So her storyline is still a little separate from everything that's going on with Treadstone, but it's still all part of this, all under the same umbrella, because everything Colonel Shin is doing is a part of all of this as well. Not unless one of those empty seats is his. Like, I assume, like I said, one of those has got to be Dan's, but I guess it's like, well, Dan's and Yuri's, but maybe like Colonel Shin's kind of an honorary member of that. Like I said, it comes down to whether or not like the Cicada program is a little like in a sense that someone else is running the Cicada program while the U.S. government or whoever it is that Ray's working with, all those people are running Treadstone. That kind of, that's a question. Not unless the whole Ray situation, Senator Ray situation, is the Cicada program and Dan was kind of doing his own Treadstone thing. no, but the way the conversation did, it made it seem like obviously there's people above Dan, so it's kind of like it implies. So, like I said, I'm probably getting too caught up in the semantics. Obviously, it's all the same thing, but I'm wondering, are they being treated as two separate things in the sense that someone is kind of revived, like someone's doing cicada stuff over here while all this other Treadstone stuff happening, even though it's the same thing. I think like two different people might be acting upon the same program is kind of what I'm trying to get at. Like I said, I'm making it worse because I'm going into semantics and stuff like that. But whereas everything else, like whether it be like the Matt and Tara storyline, the Doug storyline, and obviously the John storyline are all kind of tied together. I mean, like I said, it's all packaged together. It's just kind of attacks from different fronts. And then obviously we see, at the very, very end, Petra meets up with John. And it's like, once again, how did you get from where you are in 73 to where you are present day? Because it's like, why weren't you together this entire time if that was the case? Like, the fact of the matter is she obviously got remarried. Like I said, she was back with the KGB. She was looking after Stiletto 6. But maybe they were waiting for the right time. Maybe it's just kind of like, well, maybe she was, sneaking away every once in a while. Maybe not. I'm just not sure what to really make of that. But I mean, I guess that's kind of the point to be like, wait, okay. Because I legitimately, every time I'm thinking like, John's going to die. Just because of where things are right now. It's like, even though him and Petra are good, like we understood where the watch situation came from. It's like, oh, you didn't steal it from John after you killed him. It's like, oh no, John willingly gave it back to you. But now it's kind of like, okay, but I kept thinking the entire time, like, John's going to die because either the CIA is going to kill him because he knows too much, or, I didn't expect him to live and actually still be alive present day, because I was like, okay, so what's up with this old John thing then? Like, isn't he? But it's like, nope, he's alive. And well, like I said, I guess that's the whole point, to be like, what the hell is that storyline? At the time of me recording this, it hasn't been said whether or not Treadstone is coming back for a season 2. I hope so. Because I was almost halfway expecting, like, when it's all said and done, I was almost wondering, like, was this going to be kind of like all said and, was it all going to be like one closed story? But obviously, as the episode went down, I was like, oh, there's so much they're leaving up. It's like, oh yeah, there's definitely going to be, there's room for a season 2, obviously. But I'm like, I hope this gets a second season, because I'm like I said, I need to understand that John and Petra thing, like how they ended up the way they were, and obviously get a grander scale of this whole, like, global conspiracy about, like, who's really pulling the strings. Obviously Senator Ray, but like, how did he get to the position that he's in right now, and how did this whole thing go down, especially because there was a whole Treadstone being shut down before, but now it's being used the way it is now. Like, how did that come to be? Obviously, obviously ties to, this all kind of ties into how the program got started in the first place. Like I said, like how Petra was able to walk away, considering she knows all of this. She helped create the program of Treadstone. So it's like, how did you just let her walk away? Not unless she's some secret asset and she doesn't realize it. Not unless she went through the Treadstone program and they like messed her up. Or, not unless she was supposed to be kind of a sleeper agent, was never activated type of thing. I just literally sat here and thought about that just now. I mean, I don't know if they necessarily go down that route. I mean, but hell, you never know. They doubled up on Steven because he broke his programming, but then they like reprogrammed him. So like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait to see. Like I said, I hope this does get a second season, because I'd love to see where they take things going forward. Hell, for all we know, because especially because like all of our like main characters that we're following around, like our sleeper agents, whether it's Doug, Soyun, or Tara, are still alive. So not unless we get introduced to other assets who might be kind of joining this like fray. It's interesting too, because like then when you actually think about it, because the entire like Bourne series is obviously following Jason Bourne, so it's like following one person apart of Treadstone. It is kind of interesting to think about the fact that you're following 3 different people. Once again, I like that the story was told from that perspective, like you're following different people's stories, but also the fact is it's 3 particular different assets who aren't even aware of each other yet, which I'm sure that's going to be something that I always love moments where like that, like obviously because the actor who plays Doug was from Sense8, it kind of reminds me of that kind of thing of like when they finally got all together. Obviously it's, that's kind of, so I kind of want that moment too of like Tara, Soyun, and Doug to meet up. Obviously, like also that probably is definitely going to include Matt. But like I said, I'm curious like how many other assets might join the fray, or how many other assets will it'll probably be like no one else's programming is messed up like theirs. I mean, but to be fair, look at Steven. Stevens wasn't 100% Centric, so it's like I said, we'll have to wait and see. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time, me be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good